welcome back to Around the Clock. On today's episode, instead of a selectmen meeting update, we're going to give you a recap and review of the town meeting that happened on Wednesday, May 1st. There were 14 articles presented at the beginning of the town meeting. Some of them went fairly quickly, all passed except 2 that were pulled, and we'll go through them in detail. So we heard town reports, we heard from a few of the committees, including our sustainability committee and also from our school committee. And of course, we heard a nice report from our town manager, letting people know some of the projects that had been approved previously and how they were progressing through their statuses. We had some amendments to the fiscal 19 budget, which ends on June 31st of this year, and that passed. We then went through the fiscal year 20 budget, which starts on July 1st. Now, before we got into that budget, one of the residents stepped up and had a question that he was trying to ask. And unfortunately, because the question he was trying to ask was not relevant to the budget and the motion being passed, he was asked to step out. If you're wondering what it was, he had chapter and law from the state about how a budget could be put together and presented. He spoke with our town council, and yes, that is one way to do it, but as our town council said, just because he thought that was the way does not mean the way that we do the budget is wrong or that there's something illegal in how we do it. So our recommendation to any residents, if you question how a budget is put together or what is going on with the budget, you are more than welcome to attend a selectmen meeting at the citizens' participation and or reach out to any of the selectmen and or town manager. We want your questions and we want your input in how we're doing things in town government because it's your government and that's why it's so important. It was great to see over 350 people plus or minus throughout the evening at town meeting. We then went forward with the budget after the discussion and it passed. It's about a $62 million budget, including enterprise funds. There was a nice increase in our state funds for education, our Chapter 70 funds. So there was a bump in the school budget because of that, but that is just getting us up to some of the levels that we should have had. And of course, because we have full day kindergarten now, tuition free, there was some additional funding related to that. From our budget, we went into discussion and a vote of an establishment of an economic development fund. So if you remember many years ago, we put in a meal sales tax of 0.75 cents so that we could use it for economic development. A big portion of it went to the 25% design for the Route 126 corridor. It then also went to our libraries and our seniors. What we're doing here with the fund is we're not taking all of that money, but we're taking some of it and creating an economic development fund. It will fund our economic development director's salary and also give her resources to help bring businesses and encourage and work with companies to increase business here in Ashland, which is something that we've heard from many residents that they'd really like to see more business. To be able to encourage more business, you need to have some funds at times to give them some incentive programs. And part of that ties into the Needham Bank program that has come into place in regards to no interest funds and no interest loans that they're doing. And that also passed. We then went into a discussion of the transfer of Robert Hill Way revenue to Affordable Trust. Again, this is a piece of property that was sold by the town to a developer for affordable housing. There was still some discussion about this, so we actually, after we started it, we did pull this. We expect this to come back with a little bit more refinement as to how these funds, once they get to the Affordable Housing Trust, will be used. So I expect you'll see that again on a future town meeting. We then went to the transfer to the OPEB trust. So again, we put money in our budget every year for our other post-employment benefits. We then put them in a trust so that they can increase funding and increase their value because they are invested, and that passed. We then had to amend the South Middlesex Regional High School agreement. So this is basically for Keefe Tech. The amendment had to do with the fact that Framingham is now a city instead of a town. So all the language that referred to the town of Framingham had to be adjusted to say the city of Framingham. So no real changes to the agreement, just some of the titles and names as it related to Framingham. And that passed with no problem. We then had two consent articles, one regarding some funding and ways that the Board of Selectmen can do business, and that was consent article number 9, and that passed. And then consent article number 10 was for CPC. That's our Community Preservation Committee funds. So we as a town, again, probably 15 years ago, selected to do 3%. So on your taxes, 3% of your tax bill is for the Community Preservation funds. That has allowed us to do things like purchase Warren Woods, purchase some of the properties off of Olive Street, off of Chestnut Street to increase our town forest. It helped pay for town hall renovations. So by the town deciding to have those funds, we then have to allocate those funds in the budget every year. And it's a consent article. We don't go into the detail, but that's what that article was. The next article was the transfer of 1 acre plus or minus at Warren Woods. Again, it was a little bit of housekeeping. Back when we purchased Warren Woods, it was split into 2 parcels. The back parcel that would always remain open space, the front parcel that originally might have been intended for some fields. About a year or two after we did the purchase, it was decided to consolidate those 2 parcels into one, but there was an acre left under the care and custody of the Board of Selectmen, and all the rest of the parcel had gone to the Conservation Commission. Now that we have a manager for the Warren District, it was decided that it was best to let that 1 acre parcel roll into the care and custody of the Conservation Commission and under the Warren District manager. That also passed with no problem. We then were looking to create an HRA stabilization fund. This was for some human resource articles. It was decided to pull this one as well because we got an indication from the state that this was not the way to do that, so that got pulled. Our last 2 articles, Article 13 was to accept, statute, and amend Chapter 178 fingerprinting. If you remember, this is the article that back in the fall created a lot of concern because who would we be fingerprinting? This is now specifically just for ice cream vendors. We have a company here in Ashland who has an ice cream truck and they want to be able to ride the streets and sell ice cream. So now we need to put this in place. So by this being passed at town meeting, and it passed unanimously, we can give the vendor their permit and you will be able to see them driving the streets of Ashland and selling ice cream this summer. You would have also seen them at the Corner Spot last summer. Our last one, Article 14, was illicit discharge and connect prohibitions. This was sponsored by the Stormwater Advisory Committee. This relates to all those, the PS4, the Stormwater Advisory, the stormwater permits that are going on. It also ties into the funding that we put in place last fall and the new stormwater rate and the stormwater fund that we've created, and that also passed. Again, it was a fairly quick and easy town meeting. We were out of there a little bit before 10, but as I said, we had about 350 plus or minus that were at the meeting at some point. So we thank all of those who attended in person. It's important to have that vote. But what was also nice was since this went up on May 1st, we've had about 2,000 people either watch the live stream that went out on Facebook on Wednesday night, as well as watched it via the cable channels, and we've had people watch it since then. So if you want to go back and you've listened to this update, but you want more detail or to see some more of the discussion that happened, you can go and catch it via Facebook on the WACA and or Around the Clock page to watch the whole town meeting if you'd like to do that. And that wraps up our spring town meeting. As I said, elections are coming up and it's important that you participate in that as well. And of course, we'll have another special town meeting come the fall. Thanks for watching this segment of Around the Clock.